sun, but it hides what's done when the day is done. Sheriff rides high on a promise he sold, but his truth's been bought and his soul's been told. He don't walk alone down that courthouse hall, got shadows that move when he makes a call. A whisper here, a favor there, and suddenly justice ain't nowhere. You can hear it humming underneath the street where power and silence meet. Oh, the machine don't bleed, don't cry, don't care. It feeds on fear and the deals they share, pulling every string in the dead of night, turning wrong to right, turning black to white. If you stand in the way, you'll disappear clean. Ain't no fighting back when you face their machine. Got henchmen lined like dominoes in a row. They don't ask why, they just go where he goes. A nod from the top and a life gets crushed. Another voice bared, another file hushed. They wear the loyalty like a second skin, trading their conscience just to fit in. Break a man down, call it law and order, build their empire at the county border. Every favor owed is a chain that binds, every truth buried buys more time. Oh, the machine don't bleed, don't cry, don't care. It feeds on fear and the deals they share, pulling every string in the dead of night, turning wrong to right, turning black to white. If you stand in the way, you'll disappear clean. Ain't no fighting back when you face their The district attorney signs with a steady hand, but the ink's been stained by a deeper plan. Senators smile from the palace stage while they trade your life for another page. County seats filled with familiar names, all tied together in a quiet game. Handshakes tighter than a noose can be, wrapped in power and immunity. And the victims cry, but no one hears. The truth gets lost in a flood of years, dragged through the mud till they break a bend, till the story twists and the lies all win. They'll take your name, they'll take your breath, dress it up nice and call it justice served to death. It's not one man, it's a web they weave, 1,000 hands that deceive, and every thread leads back again to the same old circle of friends. Oh, the machine don't bleed, don't cry, don't care. It feeds on fear and the deals they share, pulling every string in the dead of night, turning wrong to right, turning black to white. And if you speak too loud, if you're seen too clean, they'll grind you down in that cold machine. So the badge still shines in the morning light, and the town sleeps easy every night. But beneath it all, where the truth's unseen, there's a whole damn world run by that machine.
To deny an order is just to deny it. But what we really need to do is we need to ask the governor to change the order.
President Trump addressed the nation about the war with Iran and threatened to, quote, bring them back to the Stone Age where they belong. And in the spirit of Easter, let me just say, Jesus Christ. President Trump's speech on the war in Iran interrupted the finale of The Masked Singer. And it's really too bad because Trump would have found out that Cat Witch was revealed to be the new Ayatollah.
In his speech, President Trump referred to the war in Iran as a little journey because little journeys are all anyone can afford to take now. President Trump said in his speech that the Strait of Hormuz would open up naturally.
This week, Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked to redact herself from her job. President Trump reportedly fired Bondi over her handling of the Epstein files because the only person Trump has ever trusted to handle the Epstein situation is a prison guard with the cameras off.
I thought that was as good of a SNL as I've ever seen. How about you guys?
I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in years, but
What?
I'm not into humor.
I've noticed that. You are not a funny person, Brandon. I mean, every once in a while you'll accidentally trip over something funny, but you know, I have no doubt that that was one of the better Saturday Night Lives we've seen in a minute. And of course, they missed the Easter Sunday tweet from the president loaded with expletives and apparently giving away operational plans and when we're going to strike and where. I don't know, Brandon. It's one of the weirder Easters I've had. And of course, I went to church with my mother, and the lady sitting in front of us had on Elizabeth Taylor's Poison. If there's any of that stuff left in the world, we need to get rid of it. Like, you know, I don't know, that thalidomide and other things that cause birth defects. Because the reason I have on sunglasses is my eyes are still. I had an allergic reaction, like hay fever reaction to it, and my eyes swell shut and my sinuses closed up. So, anyway, I look quite Chinese this morning. So, Ms. Wadsworth, it is a pleasure to have you back with us. And I need to start by saying no representation is made that the quality of legal services to be provided are greater than legal services of other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele. I'm a retired gentleman in Daphne, Alabama. I'm joined today by Brandon Mosley, reporter and content manager at the Alabama Gazette, and Dr. Nicole Wadsworth, a candidate for lieutenant governor of the state of Alabama, which puts her in the craziest field I've seen in a minute. So, Dr. Wadsworth, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Again.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Nicole Jones Wadsworth. I'm a proud member of the private sector. I have a background in business, contracts, and economic development. And my entire career, I've helped bring industry to our state. We recruit and we build primarily office, industrial, medical facilities. And over the course of my career, I've been able to visit all 67 counties over 25 times on my own dime, not the taxpayers' dime, not the Alabama Republican Party's dime, my dime, meeting with people around our state. And it's through meeting with my clients and constituents and their families in Alabama's urban and rural markets that the same 5 key issues have kept coming up. And so what I want to do with the lieutenant governor's office is improve the quality of life for Alabamians in the areas of industry recruitment and retention, workforce development, statewide infrastructure improvements, rural health care, and public safety. These are policy-oriented solutions that can help everybody, no matter where you live.
Well, Brandon,
I can elaborate on all of them if you want. Because I know you know economic development real well. So
I thought I did until the rewrite of the Constitution of what are we calling it now? The Constitution of 22 instead of 1901.
Yes,
So
it's the 2022 Constitution.
So now we've done away with all the provisions that say you can't lend your credit, and all the really crooked little towns are off to the races, creating their own little authorities so that they can, essentially lend the credit to private enterprise. Now, you may say Bay Minette needs a Big Mike Steakhouse, but do they need one where there's no risk to the person who invests in the business because the town has invested in the business? And, why does Big Mike's get this money when, you're picking winners and losers? Let's put it that way.
You are picking winners and losers, but that said, I do like Big Mike's.
Yeah, I mean, and they have it's going to be a lovely building because they're taking. Anyway, my daddy used to own that building at one point in time. It was Baldwin Heating and Air. So I'm very familiar with it. It's a great old structure right in downtown. It's the kind of thing we want, as opposed to going, so let's talk a little bit about economic development for a minute, because going out here and putting in a Buc-ee's and causing, creating a nexus that employs 15 people and causes all this traffic noise and everything else. What I'm getting at is there's economic development where we take a piece of tin foil and we put a car out the other end, and all those improvements that we made here, we get paid for, right? Taking a pipe and putting a thread on the end and sending it out the other end, nobody's making any money. But when you take something very simplistic and make it something very complicated, the people that are doing that, like say in Huntsville, where they're making rockets and the Iron Dome and everything, it's very different than, I don't know, let's say an aluminum smelter down here in, on our last mega site. And the reason that we put it here is because it's the last place in Alabama that has clean enough air for us to put aluminum particulates up. So, but
now the aluminum,
I'm all for you.
I'm all for
economic development, but let's parse it down. Let's talk about these data centers that are going to do nothing but drive our power rates up. And guess what? In Alabama, the only way to make more power is to burn more coal. And guess who's in charge in Alabama? We just found out they just stripped the lieutenant governor of half their power and created some powder puff version of the Public Service Commission, which would have functioned perfectly if not for the regulatory capture of every single one of their members. Well, not every single one, but they always keep 2 out of 3. And anyway, I went by Twinkle Kavanaugh's office 7 times personally asking for a meeting because I used to go with Rip up to the VA all the time, and they're in the same building. Have you visited this structure before? The Ethics Commission's on the first floor. So, everybody holds their breath and holds their nose and runs by so they don't get covered in the stench.
Yeah, then the Veterans Commission, I think, is on like the 5th floor.
It's on the same floor as the VA. So when Paul was over here, chatting with our dearly departed admiral, I was at the other end of the hall trying to get anybody at the Public Service Commission to explain to me why we haven't had a rate hearing since I was 3 years old.
And that's one reason why the legislature did step in, or tried to step in.
Okay. Well, the legislature's power drunk. The Garland Gudger, who couldn't get his date's bra off at the last end of the last session, so to speak. We're now trusting him with more power than the lieutenant governor. We've stripped the lieutenant governor's power and given it to what's his position? He's
the president pro tem of the Senate.
President pro tem, yes. So anyway, for folks that are listening,
the lieutenant governor used to be the second most powerful person in the state.
And that's why,
But then the public elected a Republican when the Democrats still had control of the legislature and the Senate back in 2002. That was Steve Wyndham. So they yanked 3/4 of the power of lieutenant governor away so that a Republican would not be telling Democrats, what bills they can do and who was on which committee and assigning bills to committee and that sort of thing.
yeah, it's calendar and committee,
But
right?
then when the Republicans took control in 2010 and Kay Ivey was the incoming lieutenant governor, they did not restore any of the powers they took away, Democrats took away. The Republican Senate decided they would just keep the power with Dale Marsh as the then pro tem. Nicole, could you explain what powers lieutenant governor still has? Because I know a lot of us are confused about that.
By statute, you preside over the Senate, you vote in case of a tie, which never happens, and you make appointments. It's already a limited role. You were able to assign certain bills to committee chairs, and that was what power was taken away. And it's unfortunate because the lieutenant governor was the one position who actually had the time to research those bills and be able to sign it appropriately. And why the Senate voted to at 32-0 to allow the Senate pro tem to have more power. And then say, oh, no, it has nothing to do with the timing of having a lieutenant governor. I don't believe that for a second.
I don't either.
And I think there's a fear of who's going to be the lieutenant governor and if there's somebody who actually knows how to think. And I spoke over the weekend. I said, look, I know how to think. I don't need somebody giving me cue cards and telling me, what needs to be done. And I think that's the biggest fear is who can we control? And, I'm not happy with it, but it is what it is. And we'll just move forward and deal with it. But it's unfortunate because, again, you had a position that was already stripped of so much of its power already in the late 90s, and now they took more away from it. So,
yeah, there's a lot of sandbagging going on. And it's kind of like you said, being fearful of who might get the position. Can you imagine Jim Ziegler being one of 3 PSC commissioners? I mean, that's what they're afraid of. And
that's one of the people that, caused that amount of power to try to do that deal, which would have eliminated the bill, which would have eliminated the election of public service commissioners, which Alabama's elected since like 1913. Now, that bill did die.
Whenever there's a swift action to remove power, you just need to raise your eyebrows and wonder what is going on and who wants to control who or who's afraid.
Exactly. Okay.
I'm being real with you. I have a real
break.
job. I'm not trying to pivot to a new government job. And, I think that's why I'm qualified to be lieutenant governor. I've helped bring hundreds of millions of dollars worth of industry to our state. I'm wanting to really use the position to put Alabamians on a pathway to employment. Because if you really look at the heart of the matter, you need to meet people where they're at and you need to equip them with a skill. Because when Alabamians are working, we all benefit. It keeps people off welfare. It reduces recidivism. And it gives a man or a woman a sense of purpose by being able to pay for something with a paycheck that he or she has earned. What makes us advantageous as a state is we have a diverse set of industries and they can employ people from a credential to a PhD. And you can be in aerospace, aviation, agriculture, food production, chemicals, metals, advanced materials. There's so many different places where you can plug in, but there are pockets of our state where people have lived in generational poverty and you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't have a family member or, a close friend or somebody who has gotten a level of education, guess what? You're right back into that cycle. You are on welfare your entire life and we all pay for it. So let's try to deal with the root of the matter and help people be able to build themselves up.
So I want to break the Ronald Reagan rule of thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican. I'm really having a hard time following what's going on with your opponents. You know, I have a hard time believing that a grown man is a butterfly farmer.
Somebody has to grow the butterflies.
Who lives in Tennessee, and the idea that you got the sack to run for anything after you made your own ID card. And this is like the biggest issue for, President Trump. Let me ask you a question from a perspective of an Alabamian. Brandon, what's the difference in somebody from Tennessee voting in my Alabama election and somebody from Mexico voting in my Alabama election? I say nothing. They're both aliens.
No, they're both Americans. I mean, if I feel like it, could buy. Well, I actually have a lot in Florida. So if I decided to build a house on my lot in Florida,
it's like the reverse Tommy Tuberville story. Are you going to tell me the Tommy Tuberville story? Go ahead.
So, Americans are Americans wherever they are, and they can move across state lines at will. Now, but with the Biden administration accepted, you can't just cross a foreign border into the U.S.
You're doing a lot of word salad to explain there's no difference in an alien voting here, whether they're from Tennessee or from Mexico, supposed to vote in our elections. No. And he made
they're still American.
He made his own fake voter card. And, whoever that bearded fat ass drug dealer is that's running 1819 News, he doesn't ask. He doesn't ask any questions about anything like that. It's a cheerleading thing. Oh, he's the party leader or whatever. I'm sorry. We need to ask hard questions so we're not caught with our pants down. Why would we run a man for governor who Ken McFeeder says lives in Florida? And everybody knows, based on the Hillary Clinton diagram, that you don't have to live in New York to be the senator from New York. I mean, you have to live there like 6 months prior to the election to run for Senate. The Alabama Constitution has a much higher standard than the federal, and it says you have to live here for 7 years.
But you don't have to live here exclusively. I mean, I'm not getting into the Tuberville McFeeders debate.
Okay, but what I'm getting at
Riley had a house in Florida the whole time he was governor of Alabama and congressman representing Alabama. You can have more. I mean, Nicole has more than one residence, but all of hers, I think, are in Alabama.
They are. They are. And I will say this, though, and Harry, you brought up a good point, is that the Constitution of Alabama says that you have to be a resident for 7 consecutive years in order to run for either governor or lieutenant governor. And as it relates to the lieutenant governor's race, the Code of Alabama also says that if you move, and you are supposed to update your driver's license within 30 days. 30 days. Code of Alabama.
I'm familiar with it.
I digress.
Yeah. So, I think that number one of your opponents is illegitimate because he doesn't live in Alabama or didn't, or he bought a house over there and he got a driver's license and he thought he was moving over there. And then kind of like Anderson Cooper and some other people around here, when it's time to run for office, they fall in love with a woman for the first time. And I understand that
he has been dating her for a while.
I beg your pardon?
He's had the same girlfriend for a while, but he's now engaged.
Yes. Anyway, like I said, all the things that you need to do, get out of that confirmed bachelor bubble that all of us, we espouse to be conservative, and then we surround ourselves with closeted homosexuals.
But we're not making weird allegations like that, Harry.
one other thing. Well, so and while I mean, if we can't still man our own positions, I just feel like it's like the last year of the Biden administration. The governor appointed Lang Floyd to be one of our district judges down here while she was under the ether having fluid took off her lung, right? It's weekend at Bernie's at the governor's office. It's just like the ghost story the PR thing they were running out of the West Wing for the last year of the Biden administration.
The governor made 26 appointments, and it was they've been worked on by her appointment staff for a while. So she just green lighted them when she got out of the hospital.
No. That appointment, let me think. What did she do when she got out of the hospital? She
signed that PSC,
she signed the PSC bill. And as far as I knew, she was still in the hospital. And then I saw where they propped her up and did you notice how she had 7 fingers on her left hand in that AI video they put out where she's giving us an Easter message? I don't know.
I was glad to see the governor. She was able to post the Easter message. We were kind of wondering how her condition was after her hospital deal. But, she was able to give the Easter message. She obviously has been through a rough time. But, as far as we know, she is functioning as the governor.
All right. Well, let's talk about somebody else's race real quick. The Senate race is kind of heating up. And I saw a poll that says the Navy SEAL that looks like Tom Cruise is neck and neck with the garbage man from Enterprise and our attorney general who couldn't catch a crook if they were, robbing the bank across the street from his office. What do you make of that?
I find it interesting that the largest number of votes is undecided. I don't want to comment too much on that poll because I'm not familiar with that pollster. Nicole, do you know anything about this outfit that did that poll?
You have to be aware of fake polls and understand that anybody can pay any organization to skew a race or an issue in whatever way they want. I think that's the biggest thing I learned. I took statistics at the undergraduate and graduate level, and that was actually one of the hot topics in both of the classes that I took was how people can skew polls. And when you're not revealing sources and who paid for it, I don't believe in polls. I mean, everything we've ran has me in a different place than people, my opponents have ran. So I don't believe in any of it. I think the biggest issue is getting people actually to the polls, meaning the polling place, and getting them to vote on May 19th, because statistically midterms have more of people staying home than during a presidential year, for example, and we just got to get them out.
So you got the butterfly man, and then you got who the person I thought who would walk into this job, our Secretary of State Wes Allen, who apparently hired the Marx brothers to give him political advice. I don't know who's running his campaign, but wow. So listen, when you're running for office, and I don't like John Wall, okay? I think he's a fake construct. I can't for the life of me, if when you're running for office, you go where people are gathered, like the Alberta Sausage Festival or the International Religion Day or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, when you're running for office, you kind of got to go where the people are congregated, and I thought it was a cheap shot, an unnecessary cheap shot. Anyway,
that's why we need to vote Nicole for lieutenant governor and beat
absolutely
everyone. I don't know if you've seen my stickers, but our kids are in college, and how when you go to the football games at Alabama or Auburn, they'll have like beat LSU, beat state, beat everyone. We have Nicole Wadsworth for lieutenant governor, beat everyone on some buttons. And I'll make sure to get y'all some.
Because, I mean, there's so many people running for lieutenant governor. We could spend 2 hours talking about all the different candidates. You know, there's the ag commissioner. There's, you know, we have one of
nobody's ever seen or heard of that's on the ballot. We have never seen him.
Yes, Seth Burton. I've never met Seth Burton or talked to him on a telephone or got a press release from him, but he's running.
Now, I've met Seth Burton, but there's a lieutenant governor candidate that nobody has met, including other candidates.
Stuart Tankersley?
No, Childress. His last name is Childress.
Oh, yeah, Brad Childress, yeah. Or George Childress, something like that.
So I think you're a very interesting candidate, Dr. Wadsworth, but you have been upstaged. Brandon, who's this cat running for governor who wants to make Montgomery the stripper city or whatever the misinformation is about him?
Yeah, that is Jamal. I think the last name is Brown.
That's right.
Yeah, I've had him on did another podcast with him. He's sort of interesting. He's a pastor by trade, but it apparently is a denomination or church that's, you know, kind of wide open on some of its, you know, policies, because he told us that, you know, he's anti-death penalty, he's pro prayer in the schools, but now he is for, you know, legalizing marijuana and the hemp products, and he wants to take all the porn filters off to make porn more accessible in Alabama, which is kind of an interesting position for a pastor. And some of his videos, if you've gone to his site, have portrayed dancing that some of us would consider rather lewd. Maybe being a politico, I watch things that some of y'all don't watch.
Watch those. I've seen the posts though about priorities, and they are interesting. I will say,
that is on the Democrat primary side. You will not find Jamal on the Republican primary ballot with Nicole. You've got to get a Democrat primary ballot, and you know he's running up against Will Boyd and Doug Jones and Chad Chig Martin for governor.
Okay, but just one.
If Nicole is elected lieutenant governor and Jamal Brown is elected governor, that will be a very interesting 4 years.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Right now, Will Ainsworth's job is to fill out the rest of Kate's campaign in the event that something tragic happens. Okay, I'm not.
He would do a good job if he had to fill in, but you know, let's pray that the governor continues to, you know, that her health improves and she finishes.
Right, but there, I don't know that you're going to be a heartbeat away with an octogenarian in there if you're the lieutenant governor. It's not like although if you become the lieutenant governor and Tuberville wins, which I suspect he shall.
He seems to be the overwhelming favorite.
Yeah, and then he gets removed because he doesn't meet the criteria. I would think the governor would become a very important person to move up into the governor's.
And I think that's why there's a lot of money involved in this lieutenant governor's race. Because I mean,
what you said though is really important, because the lieutenant governor, when you vote for a lieutenant governor, you need to vote for somebody who understands business, who is not tied down to the political cesspool in Montgomery, because unfortunately I've learned more than my fair share about how it's a cesspool, and somebody who can truly study the ship and do what's right for the people of Alabama. That's why when I talk about my platform, which is centered around workforce development, statewide infrastructure improvements, rural healthcare, public safety, these are all issues that I've worked on either through my firm, through border committee service, or as an individual for my entire life. Like, I understand it. And that's why we need somebody in that office who isn't just giving you political talking points, who has real experience in tackling some of these issues and can improve quality of life.
I mean,
And I think
I'm thinking that building the structure in which to house the butterflies, and then marketing myself as a butterfly man, and then actually selling the butterflies, remitting the appropriate tax. Yeah, I think you're probably the better candidate on that one.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. But
it's just hilarious to me how these polls work out, and you're just sitting there going, have they met John Wall? Because I have, and I immediately thought maybe the guy's had the flu and he's just having a bad, he's just off, socially awkward, like a kid with on the autism spectrum. But man, he shows up at everything. I mean, that's like, I'll give him that one. He's everywhere. He's like,
I mean, I've always liked John Wall. Now the question is he, if he had to take over as governor, does he have enough life experience to be governor? You really have to ask that of all lieutenant governor candidates.
I said this at a meeting the other day that I spoke at, because I'm speaking and have been about twice a day. I'm in at least 4 different counties a day. I'm treating this election very seriously. Of course, I did that before the election too. But at one of the groups I spoke at last week, I said, look, I'm pretty sure that all of us are Republicans in the room, that we all know that we're a red state, that we all love our families, that we all go to church, and we all don't believe a boy should be in a girl's bathroom or vice versa. Let's talk about real issues and how I can help you and how we can truly put Alabama first. I want us to be first state for job recruitment and retention, first for quality of life, first for the good things instead of the bad, not first for corruption or, a plethora of other issues. The other important component of my campaign with rural healthcare is also a healthy Alabama. So what I mean is, we've got 15% of Alabamians that are on SNAP benefits. I know some of the other candidates who are running for ag commissioner talked about how, people can take SNAP benefits and they can buy margarita mix or they can buy sugary drinks. We can have a waiver in the state of Alabama that says that they can't buy that. Let's work with our local farmers. Let's encourage people to get healthy again. Let's get grant funds for public parks to encourage free outdoor activity for different communities. Because what happens is, if you have absolute right to do whatever you want with your body, but understand that, if you're smoking and drinking all the time, if all you're drinking is sugary drinks, if that's what you feed your kids is Coke all day long, they end up with these long-term diseases like heart disease, diabetes. They end up having a stroke. And as society, we end up paying for it because they can't work, because they're on all these benefits, because they have unhealthy habits. And we need to change that trajectory. I represent one client who was able to earn a $700,000 federal grant to practice in 2 economically impoverished Alabama counties. He's a physician. And, in our rural areas, you have a lot of people that won't necessarily want to practice in the rural areas because they don't think that they will make as much money, because they're not going to have the volume as they would in more of a larger metropolitan area. But I know where the pockets of money are, so why not have a lieutenant governor who knows that, where the money is and who can help recruit people to go to serve people who actually need it. one of the barriers to rural healthcare too is transportation. People don't get their follow-up visits because they either don't have a car at all, or they have one that they have to share with somebody, or, you know, it may not work half the time. So what my client did was he took part of his money and he purchased a van where his staff can go to patients' homes who don't have adequate transportation. He can pick them up, bring them to the doctor's office, and bring them back home. And what this has done was it not only has gotten Alabamians healthy again, but some of them have shared that now they actually have stable jobs where they can purchase vehicles of their own. So it's looking at everything from a long-term perspective that's going to lift us out and lift some of these areas out of the pit that people have been living in for a long time. Again, you've got to understand, you can't sit there and blame everybody. You don't know what you don't know, but, you know, I can help them out by, you know, putting them in contact with resources. That's what I'm wanting to do with the office, is get creative, you know, with the office, make it more of what it is, because as y'all talked about earlier, if I was elected lieutenant governor, I'd have less power than I would at the beginning of this campaign, but you do have a voice and you can advocate for issues that matter.
All right, so we got to talk about another elephant. Do you mind?
Sure.
Where the hell is I've been in rural Alabama. I've been to Shady Grove and Booger Holler and Sand Mountain. I ain't never been to no Indian Springs. Where's Indian Springs, Alabama?
You mean Indian
Engine, like a
Springs?
car? Indian or engine?
Indian.
Yeah,
Springs.
Indian Springs is, yeah, that's right below where my church is. It's I don't know that they're incorporated, but it's an area of Shelby County just south of the Jefferson County line. It's very affluent. Indian Springs School is there. Our Lady of the Valley Catholic Church is there. It's very near Oak Mountain. I think intermediate school. Yeah, that's probably the north end of Indian Springs. It's 119 if you're going between 280 and Pelham. You're going right through the middle of Indian Springs.
Okay, but
Population.
they don't teach no engine skills in Engine Springs, because State Representative Arnold Mooney, Republican of Indian Springs, has denied accusations of recording a closed-door House Republican caucus meeting after he was removed from the meeting, kicked out of the caucus, and stripped of his chairmanship of the Shelby County Legislative Committee. Mooney was kicked out of the impromptu caucus meeting on Wednesday evening, which was called to discuss legislation related to what? The Public Service Commission. According to witnesses, House Majority Leader Paul Lee, Republican of Dothan, reportedly grabbed Mooney's phone and escorted him out of the meeting. How about that one?
This is always a deal that has annoyed me. If I go to my local barbecue place and 4 of my county commissioners are sitting at the same table eating barbecue at the barbecue place, we have a violation of, Alabama's, rule about meetings. You can have 2 commissioners meeting, but you can't have the majority of the commission meeting,
You talking about
because you're violating the sunset laws of the state. But now the legislature, who writes the sunset rules and writes the laws of this state, a majority of them can be meeting in a caucus and no press is allowed. And God forbid that one member may be recording, something in the meeting for whatever purpose. That they have closed caucus meetings that the press is not allowed in, and that, members are going to be punished if you share information from. I mean, both the Republicans and the Democrats do it. That completely boggles my mind. I mean, to me, if there's more than 5 of them meeting, there's 105 members in the legislature, that meeting should violate the sunset law, but it doesn't because it's the legislature who writes the sunset law. Now, and to be on Arnold's case, I don't know if he did what he's accused of or not, because again, it's a closed meeting, so no reporters were there. But now I had people trying to feed me information about various legislators to expose them as the leak before Arnold was supposedly exposed by APR source. Various people are trying to make other people look like they're the leak. Obviously Speaker Ledbetter's comments, they got turned in, got recorded previously. So Arnold, it looks like he's going to be the fall guy. He may be guilty. And again, this isn't a violation of any law. But be careful about assuming that.
And I don't know who did what. Full disclosure, my husband's a member of the legislature, and I'm not going to get into their debacle, but I will say, as a citizen and a voter, what troubled me was how it was voted on to kick him out of the caucus. When you've got a bunch of people, and I have no say either way on this issue of whether or not he should or should not be kicked out. My issue was with the process. If you're going to vote to kick somebody out of a caucus and you're going to vote yes or no, you need to have the results of how somebody's elected transparent. For example, you have however many members there are in the room, and you give them yes or no on a piece of paper you put into a bowl. Okay. You should lift up the yeses and lift up the no's so that everybody in that room can see objectively how many people wanted to kick them out versus keep them. And it wasn't done that way. It was done behind closed doors. And that's my concern.
How many fingers am I holding up behind my back or something like
Well,
that?
and again, you can do it so simply because, by revealing how many yays or nays, you're not singling out any legislator. If you have them in a bowl and you're just lifting up the pieces of paper, why not be transparent in the process? So at least the man knows whether or not his peers wanted him in or out.
All right, so Pam Bondi's down here working at Hooters in Santa Rosa County again. Christy Nome lost her job. Brandon, what do you think the chances are? It's kind of like the Epstein files. It's not so much what's in them; it's the fact the government had them for the last 10 years and or 15 years and did nothing with them. Do you think there's any way that the puppy killer from South Dakota's husband, like cross-dressing with watermelons in his shirt, you think there's any way the FBI didn't know about that before she was appointed Homeland Security Director?
I'm sure the FBI knew about it and found out about it in background, but that they have a unconventional husband-wife relationship. Is like,
that's very generous, Brandon.
Well, I mean, that wasn't seen to be an issue and not worthy of it being made public before the deal. But once she was in there and she was having an affair with Corey Ledowski, who's supposed to be a part-time political consultant, for the Department of Homeland Security, and she's having an affair with him, and he's running around telling FBI and ICE and border people that, to call him chief, and that he's giving them orders, even though he's not over them, because he is the boyfriend of the Homeland Security Secretary. I think Trump needs to make a change. Pam Bondi, she was too slow in getting those Epstein documents out, and she became the fall person there. I think.
Her whole job was to not release the Epstein files.
But Trump told her to
so,
release the Epstein
okay, well,
files.
let me give you
But
a
then they
quote
came out
here.
in little dribs and drabs, and it was like it was a never-ending story.
Okay. Acting AG Todd Blanchett says there's zero evidence Epstein was a spy. We don't have any evidence in the Epstein files.
Which is probably true. It didn't say he wasn't a spy. It just said they had no evidence.
Releasing the files. They've released all they're going to. The show's over. You guys can, go talk about something else.
I always thought this story was overblown anyway. I mean, once Epstein was dead, what are you going to do?
Well, it's not what he was doing. I mean, it wasn't so much for me that he was trafficking children and there are going to be no more victims. It's that all these people knew he was trafficking children because they were partaking, and they're all, professor emeritus at Harvard, MIT, the CEO.
And a bunch of them lost jobs, and they should have lost their jobs.
Yes, that sounds about right. Okay, so tell me about what's coming up. When's the next time you're going to be in Baldwin County so our viewers can come see you?
Well, tonight I'll actually be in Mobile County if people want to go over the bay. There's 39 candidates that will be at the Mobile County Republican Party candidate fair. I'd have to look at my calendar to figure out when I'm going to be in Baldwin next. I know it'll be within the next week for sure.
Okay, well,
and I will get that information to you.
Okay.
Or I can look at it now if you want me to look at it, and I can tell you.
Yeah, please do. I mean, we'd like to let everybody know when and where they can see you. So, Brandon, anything else that we need to worry about? Oh, I did want to comment on this. People make lists, I guess, kind of like the New York Times bestseller list. Then the list becomes a thing. So the Yellowhammer News that nobody reads or watches or even understands who funds them came out with the powerful, the top 50 most powerful and influential people in Alabama. Have you, essentially all you need to do is look and see who's appointed to all the boards of trustees of all the colleges and universities or their spouses. I mean, just go look at Auburn's. It's a who's who of people who haven't been to the grocery store, kind of like George Bush, when he went to the grocery store and he was shocked by the.
Well, I mean, now that Kroger delivers the food to your house, why would you go to the grocery store?
Yeah, I mean, like Will Ainsworth's dad. He's like,
I'm sure Kroger delivered his food to the house too.
He's on the board. So what did you think about Trump attending? Well, I'll comment on this. We have three equally, power balanced branches of government, and I thought the funniest thing I'd seen in my life was Trump sneaks onto Supreme Court bench, cleverly disguised as Justice Sotomayor. So the president.
Yeah, that went over my head there.
Well, you got to remember there was the Obama State of the Union where he berated the justices after Citizens United, which anybody with a brain knows that it's like the worst decision since Dred Scott. And it was legitimate, and he was in their house, or they were in the legislative house. He'd been brought there to tell them the State of the Union, and the Supreme Court sitting there on the front row. I think it's completely different when you show up at a hearing where your Solicitor General is supposed to be representing the government, and you're sitting there on the front row, staring Justice Kagan down or whatever. I don't know. Everything the guy does is bizarre, and the sideshow that he brings along with him is not what we really want in the Supreme Court. Of course, I was trying to explain to Brandon the Catholic overthrow that has occurred on our court, which I believe has led to some of these decisions in recent history. So, and I'll just
I think this has been a very good court.
here to there.
That's
How I see it, and that's highly unusual for it's not like 70% of the country is Catholic. Why would 70% of the court be Catholic? All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll leave it there unless you have something else, Brandon.
The legislature will be meeting tomorrow, and we're getting very near the end of this session.
I mean, are we going to get the 10 Commandments up so that they can come tell us to take them down?
We're hoping that we get that through the House. A lot of it depends on, does the Senate log jam? If the Senate log jams, the goofy House guys will retaliate to their bills not passing in the Senate by not passing Senate bills. I kind of wish people would put the interest of the state ahead of their own little selfish, legislature goes, if you kill my bill, I'll kill your bill nonsense. But this is about my legislature, and based on the last 2 years, really last 3 years, the end can be less than ideal.
Just one thing I wanted to mention, I'm gonna be heading up country again to Monroeville. There was a man who died in custody, and you never know if it was like a George Floyd incident where he died of a drug overdose or whatever, and it got blamed on the officer. But I can tell you, it's a full court press and nobody's saying anything, which means I'm gonna fuel the jet and head that way. Piques my interest when body cameras aren't available, and what was the Epstein story, Brandon? I was asleep.
The cameras were malfunctioning.
Asleep. The cameras didn't work. He sat there for 3 hours braiding the sheet that he tore up into a ligature, even though he had the cord to his CPAP machine over here that he could have thrown over the, yeah. It's one of those kind of stories, and it's right up the road in Monroeville. And there's video from a bystander who sees them dragging him down the road. Now, was that because they beat the hell out of him and he couldn't walk on his own accord, or because he was high on drugs? That's kind of where I'm coming from at it, and that ought to be a real easy answer for the medical examiner. Of course, he's going to write down preliminarily whatever the police tell him, and then the police are going to say, no, this isn't a murder because the medical examiner says it wasn't. So anyway, I don't know if you can do anything about the cyclical nature of, let's say, Harry suspects that a third of the suicides in Alabama are not suicides.
That'd be Harry's suspicion.
That's my wild, or at least in South Alabama. I can give you now. I have another one. So I think I'm up to like 14 now. Oh, all right. Well, Dr. Wadsworth, it was again a pleasure. My Zyrtec
Asked me to look at my calendar, and I was able to pull that. I'll be in Mobile tonight. I'm speaking in Mobile on the evening of the 14th. I'm speaking in Point Clear on the evening of the 28th. And then I'll be in Baldwin for private meetings and constituent meetings 2 days in between there. So if y'all, if you want me to visit with you individually or as a business, just feel free to contact me via phone or email, and I'd be happy to schedule a meeting.
So Brandon, we have a meeting down here at the Bay Minette Civic Center. I believe it's Wednesday night at 5 o'clock, and the folks that want to put 4,500 acres of solar farm up are going to tell us why it's a good thing, and how us common stupid country people can't understand is it Chevron or Exxon?
Shell is the money behind.
Shell is the money behind this clean energy project that we really ought to be grateful for. So anyway, I hope everyone else will bring their satirical looking hat and come be told how you don't know anything.
You have to register for the
market
meeting.
experts.
You have to register for the meet. It's free to attend, but you have to register in advance to be admitted in.
And who's holding the meeting? Is it
The company, the ranch company that
Solar Ranch?
Yeah, it's a Tennessee-based company.
Well,
They own thousands and thousands of acres of solar farms, which they build and then operate and maintain.
So Dr. Wadsworth, back to Monroeville just for a second. So, in the suicides in Monroeville, there were 2 deaths in 2022. They were 2 days apart. And the most suspicious thing about the whole thing to me was the murder cop was out of town at a fingerprinting class.
That sometimes happens.
Yeah. So it'll be. I wonder if Mike's going to be out of town for this one too. It should be. It should be an interesting. So yeah. So if I make it back from there, I will see all of you at the solar farm meeting. And Brandon may even make his way down here.
Ask you though, Harry, where did the alleged suicides occur? Was this a prison suicide or?
Oh no, one of them was a lawyer. His name was David Steele, and they did a whole. I want to say it was the guy in the red truck that goes around and goes to the Potters and the G's. I can't think of the name of the Southern Proud. Anyway, he came down and interviewed David Steele, and because he started embezzled $20 million through the probate court from a foundation and a family trust, and of course. There were 8 people that had to have known that he was embezzling this money, and he caps himself. And then 2 days later, the richest man south of Montgomery stabs himself to death 22 times. Swear to God, it's all true. I have the autopsy report. I mean, as a matter of fact, the vice president of the company had a severance agreement that said if he died, she got paid, and we had to file a lawsuit based on that. So I actually have a subpoena. I didn't just go get the death certificate. It's subpoenaed properly under the rules of civil procedure. So anyway, I absolutely know what I'm talking about up there. And the other statistical anomaly is how many people have killed themselves in Monroeville, Alabama, a town of 3,200 people in the last 50 years. 3 of them. And 2 of them were 2 days apart while the murder cop was out of town. It's just indicative of malice aforethought, right? We're waiting for the murder cop to go out of town so we can whack everybody.
I would say I'm tired of the state of Alabama being listed as the most legal and illegally corrupt state. And, the political consultant that I hired, they work, I'm their only statewide candidate in the state of Alabama. They work in 40 states. And he said by far Alabama is the most corrupt that they've ever worked at. And that's got to change. And that's why we need to get right people in office. We have to get right people in appointed positions. People who aren't serving themselves, because whether it's true or it's not, I hate to hear stuff like that. It bothers me. That type of stuff keeps me up at night because I know we can do better. Especially
living in Etowah County, because if they put you in that jail, so if you seen what was it, 40 Days In? What was the documentary on A&E where they took the cameras into the jail and there were dudes in there that had toaster ovens? Like every single cell had microwaves in it. Anyway,
I didn't see the documentary, but
listen, they pulled 2
The sheriff tells me that's all been cleaned up now. I'm gonna have to let y'all guys go
to get all the contraband out of the jail. So yes, I think you have I think the sheriff has ironed the kinks out of that place. But yeah, letting cameras into your jail, probably not anything anybody in Alabama is ever going to do again because of that guy. Or I sure as heck wouldn't. All right, Brandon, I'll give you the last word.
Thank you for being on, Nicole.
Thank you. I
Good
had
luck
fun.
with
Y'all
your
were
campaign.
feisty today.